There we go. And let's dive in. We're talking about quizzes today. But before we get started talking about quizzes, I just want to kind of get a little read of the room. How many of you guys have done training with me before? Type yes if you have, no if you haven't, or yeah, raise your hand if you have. I know I recognize some of your faces, and there's definitely some new faces as well, which I'm so happy to see. And new, yes, amazing. Welcome, everyone. Okay. So many of you might know me as a numerologist. Many of you might know me as a business strategist. I'm like, we get to be both. How many of you guys feel like you're kind of multi passionate, like you have lots of things you like to do, and like sticking yourself into one little niche is not always the easiest? I'm like, yeah, me. But it's interesting because when I always look at my journey, it's always easier to tell down the road why things kind of wove together, you know? And so I always trust that there's a reason why we have the variety of backgrounds, experiences that we have, and where it's kind of all coming to. So, in today's training, which is all about how you can use a quiz to attract clients and income, we're going to be talking a lot about business strategy. But I want you to recognize that there's a lot of energetics at play that we'll be going into more on Friday's class. For those of you, just to kind of give you a lay of the land, we have a class today on how to use a quiz to attract clients and income. We have a training on Friday, which is to understand the strategy of your business and where the energetics play in. I love to look at people's numerology codes and energy codes to have a better understanding of the types of niches they're meant to work with, the types of people they're meant to work with, the types of questions that people have. And I use my intuition and my numerology when I design all of my work, even when it's like the very strategic, left brain businessy type stuff. My numerology codes informed kind of how I got here. So we'll talk more about that on Friday. And then on Monday, I'm going to be teaching a class on marketing and creating a marketing attraction framework. So I hope I'm going to catch you guys for all of it. But today, very specifically, we're diving into quizzes. So yay, there's a few more people coming in. So hopefully you guys have your notebooks handy, because this is going to be a very action oriented class. I'm going to give you prompts. I'm going to give you homework assignment, because I really want that what we do today is gonna create a result for you. This isn't just to sit here and be entertained. Hopefully I'm somewhat entertaining. I don't know. My kids would say no. But I want us to actually get something out of here. Okay. So the more you can be as present to this as possible and answer the questions, whether it's in your journal or in the chat, then hopefully you're going to actually leave with a couple of key things. So let me ask you a few questions just to make sure we're all in the right place. Number one, the question is, you're in the right place if you are an entrepreneur who feels like you're sensitive to energy. Okay. That is the type of people that I work best with, is people who are very sensitive to energy, because you're here to make a difference. You care deeply about the impact that you're making and the people you're here to work with. You need to do business in a slightly different way, one that honors maybe your energy or your client's energy, but you're not here for the quote unquote formula of following the status quo. You want to switch things up a little bit, right? You're also here if you are looking to bring in more clients and more revenue. Okay, that is very specifically what we're talking about today, is how to bring in more clients and more revenue. Some of you may say, I have enough clients, but I want more revenue. And if that's you, then this will be relevant for you as well. But Friday's class will be most important, because Friday's class, we're going to be talking about how to create a more leveraged business model and what you need to have in place to have that. So sometimes people think it's synonymous. More clients, more revenue, right? But some of you are like, I have enough clients and I want more revenue. So that's going to be Friday. Okay. So yes, please to both. I'm here for both. And the idea of bringing in more clients and more revenue sometimes feels daunting because you're very aware of your energetic capacity. Is that anybody here? Excellent. Both, please. Absolutely. Okay. This is not for you. Okay. I'm going to be completely blunt and direct on this. This is not for you if you're not willing to get a little bit uncomfortable. Okay. I'm here to tell you, I wish it was not true, but I have been doing this now for my business is 12 years old in December. Can't freaking believe it. Every time I grew an aspect of my business, it required doing something wildly uncomfortable, right? Wildly uncomfortable. The difference is uncomfortable versus going against your intuition. That's a very fine line distinction that sometimes it's hard to tell. Okay. So I'm going to say you need to be willing to do uncomfortable things. Okay. That's one of them. It's not for you if you're not willing to experiment. The other thing that I'm straight up front with everyone about is like I said, by December, this will be 12 years for me. It's an experiment every single time. Just because something worked last year does not mean it will work this year. Just because something worked last launch cycle does not mean it will work this launch cycle. It's always an experiment. And I've had to decide for myself that it's my choice to decide that experimenting in business is fun. Because, like, let's be real, we could also decide that experimenting in business is stressful and scary. But like, which is the one you'd rather hold as your truth? Experimenting is fun and scary, or sorry, experimenting is scary or it's fun, right? And you have to sort of choose which one you want to play in. You're not willing to put in the time. It will take time. I don't believe in overnight successes. Every time I've ever seen someone experience a quantum leap, it's because they put in incremental work behind the scenes that you did not see. Right? That's just been my experience. I'd love to be open to a reality where that's not the case. But after 12 years, I feel like it's pretty clear to me that most people who look like overnight successes have had many things behind them that built to this point, and they were willing to put in the work, right? The other thing I want to bring out that's a bit of a distinction I haven't talked about a lot in the past is the difference between being a service provider versus an entrepreneur. Okay. So many of my clients provide services. Okay. If you focus on being a service provider, that looks like focusing on one-on-one service, dollars per hours exchanged, and you will be capped at how many clients per day, per week, per month you can see. Okay. So if you are like, let's say, let's use Reiki as an example. If you're a Reiki healer and you're focused on being a service provider, you will be like, I can see, 4 Reiki clients in a day. I don't know. Everyone's capacity is different. Like I'm a numerologist. I would only want to do 3 readings a day max, and I would only want to do 5 readings a week max. That's me. So if I'm only doing one-on-one readings and I'm charging $150 an hour and I can only do 5 a week, that's $750 a week. That is not going to do it. Single mom of 3 kids. That's not going to do it. So the difference between service provider and entrepreneur is a key distinction that you're willing to experiment, take risks, and try different things for leverage. Okay, that's a key distinction. So if you want to be a service provider, totally fine, but this model might not be for you. Okay, any questions about that so far? Anybody, thoughts, any insights? Let's make this as interactive as possible. You guys are completely welcome to unmute or to pop it in the chat or to let me know what your thoughts are. I can relate to the amount of people per day, per week when you do a tarot reading. Absolutely. When you're sensitive to energy and when you're doing work that's like really meaningful, it's not like, I don't know, like you're a doctor and you're like, I can see 20 patients a day. It's not the same. Yay. I'm so glad you're here, Bree. Amazing. Yes. Okay. Yeah. How can I make more money by doing less or doing the same? We are going to talk about that on Friday. Okay. This is so good. I'm glad that your wheels are already turning in that direction because that's the distinction between service provider, dollars per hour or dollars per client versus entrepreneur. Okay. So participation time. I want you guys to write this in your notebooks. You don't have to share it unless you want to. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with your current level of income? 10 out of 10 is like, I love my current income. I don't need to change it. You know, anything below that indicates your level of desire for change when it comes to your current level of income. Okay. So rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how happy you are with your current level of income. The next question I want to ask you is, if you were to see your income increase, what would that mean to you? And I want you to just write down 3 little bullet points. So I'll give you some examples for me. If my income were to increase, what would that mean for me? It would mean some of the activities that I want to put my children in, I could do it without having to like think of the budget, right? I would just sign them up for the sports they want to play and I wouldn't think twice about it, right? It would mean more family travel, more family time together. My eldest is 14 now, and I'm very aware of the ticking clock of how many summers her and I have left together before she's like, wants to spend more time with her friends than her mom and her siblings. So I would travel more, right? I also, most of you know this, who've been following me for a while. I have a book that's been written for a couple of years now that I need to publish. More revenue for me would mean I would get that book published. That has been the stopgap for me publishing this book, right? Oh my gosh. Yes, freedom, quarterly planning retreats with my biz besties, 100%. Carly, I'm there. So I just want you to think to yourself, what would it mean to me if I was willing to increase my income? What would the 3 key things be? The next question I want to ask you is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with your current client volume? Again, this may or may not be the same. Like some of you might say, I want to keep my volume the same. I don't want to work with more clients, but I do want more income. And some of you might say, I do want a greater volume of clients, right? So I want you to think about that. How happy are you with the current volume of clients? And if you were to increase that, what would that mean to you? Right? And bear in mind, some of you might not know how the leverage is going to play out yet, and that's okay and fair enough. You can kind of keep that as like the unknown mystery box in your imagination. Like, I do want more clients. I don't want more one-on-ones, but I do want more clients. Fair enough. Okay. We'll talk about that on Friday. Yes. Writing your first book, it is a lot more work than birthing a baby. I birthed 3, I should know. Okay. All right. Let's get into it. Anybody have any questions before we move forward? The first thing I want to talk to you about is I just want to give you a little bit of background on why I'm teaching what I'm teaching. Okay. Like I said, I've been doing business coaching, consulting for 12 years now in December. My background is I'm an economist. I have a master's degree in econ. I used to be a forecaster for the provincial government in Alberta, which means I would look at like these banks of data. I worked for the Department of Finance and I would look at patterns in the numbers to predict how much money the government would have to spend in the next budget. That was my job. I was a policy analyst. I did all kinds of stuff like that. But then I wanted to move back home to my hometown of Kelowna. And 12 years ago, there was not a lot of jobs for economists in Kelowna. So I started working as a business coach, and I worked as a business coach for lots of different small businesses that were very like normal, right? Like I worked for a retail eyeglass company, I worked for a construction company, I worked for a renovation company. Like these were just like normal business. I worked for a hockey academy. Like these were just regular businesses. But at the same time, all this was going on. I was having this like massive intuitive expansion, spiritual awakening, all the things. And that's where I really started to integrate business and energy together. Okay. So I have been launching my business using a very standard model of run a webinar or run a live in-person workshop. That's how I started, was like in-person workshops at a coffee shop or at a networking group, and use that to position a product or service, right? So there was this group in Kelowna, some of you might, Judy, you might remember, there was a group in Kelowna called the Purple Vine Club. And that was like the first one I think I did a workshop in like 12 years ago, and did a workshop at the Bike Shop, which is a coffee shop here in Kelowna. And that's how I got the first bunch of clients, right? And so I copied and pasted that model online. I run webinars online all the time, workshops online all the time, like this one, and use them to educate, to support, to build my community, to provide value, but then also to show you what's available. And should this make sense to you, you can take this model, run with it on your own, or if you want my help, you can take the model, come and train with me, right? You can work with me one-on-one, you can work with me in a group, and I'll walk you through, help you implement, right? So I've been doing that for 12 years, you guys. The last 12 months, I have noticed a big shift. Okay, raise your hand if you've noticed a shift in sales and marketing in the last 12 months and felt like things are not necessarily the same. Okay, big time. And so in June, I was experimenting with an offer that I wanted to put together called Healing Currency. Some of you, I think, actually were even part of that program. And Healing Currency was all about healing your money trauma, which is something I'm like passionate about. And so I'm like, okay, I want to sell this. Live webinars and events aren't working the same way they used to. What's a way I can create massive value for my people that can be on their own terms, on their own schedule, in their own way, that will help them? And I was going into the Akashic Records every day as I was creating this content, okay, for the Healing Currency program every day. And I'm in the records, and the guide said to me, do a quiz. I was like, oh my gosh, like fun. I love quizzes. Loved it when, it like back in the day when you get your Cosmo magazine, you'd flip and you do the quiz and figure out whatever, right? Like so fun. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a quiz. But then the way it was shown to me in the records was, your people need to understand some things about themselves first. And because we are so inundated with information, we put a wall up. So how many of you have felt this when you're trying to like support your clients or impact them in a positive way? You're like, I feel there's a wall there and I don't know how to share it in a consensual like way, respectful, loving way. But like also like, I know that you would benefit from hearing this, but you also have a wall up, right? This is where the quiz comes in. And this is where I was like, ooh, my clients have, so this was my program, right? My clients have money trauma. They need to understand, before they can make sense of their money trauma, they need to first understand, what is their relationship like with money? And I want to help them understand that in a very, consent-based way. So I gave them a quiz to figure out, what is their money relationship? Well, this was so cool. I threw this together. The quiz itself, like I downloaded the idea from the Akashic Records, put it all together. The quiz went live within like 3 days from my idea. Within 9 days of launching it to my list and my social media, I think there was something like, I want to say 160 people or 170 people took the quiz. Okay. Of those 160 people, 24 of them bought the product. Okay. Which is an insane conversion rate. It's like a 20 some odd, I can't remember off the top of my head what the math was, 20 some odd % conversion rate. In an industry where you would expect conversion to be 1 to 3%, I was like, whoa, there is something to pay attention to here, right? And so then I started reflecting to myself, where else have I used quizzes to connect? And I remembered last fall, I did it again this fall. Some of you might have had it with me, but last fall I did I'm going to call it an assessment, where I gave people a Google form to fill out. They shared information with me, and then I sent them a voice note back, giving them, what's your biggest challenge in business and what's your biggest opportunity in business? like a 5-minute voice note or whatever it was. Again, the last time I did it, I had 45 people fill it out and 17 of them bought my offer. Again, like an unheard of conversion rate. So I was like, okay, there is something to pay attention here, right? The reason I believe that the quizzes work is because of this like invisible wall that we often feel like with our clients have, right? They have not necessarily consented to interact with a certain level of education, training, support, whatever. Like maybe they're on social media to be entertained, but maybe they're not there to be educated. Or maybe they're, whatever, who knows? Whereas with the quiz, when they click, like, I'm going to take the quiz, that is their active consent and engagement in your education, right? They're like, I want to understand this. So they click the button, they answer some questions to learn about themselves, right? To understand about themselves. Now, my approach to marketing is I'm going to share information with you because let's be real, information is freely available everywhere. Information is not valuable anymore. In fact, sometimes information is detrimental, like information overload or analysis paralysis, right? So information is not valuable anymore. What's valuable is energy, transformation, and support. So let me share this information freely. You can take it and run with it and go and implement it on your own time. Or if you want help, I'll help you. Hand in hand, we'll walk together. I'll provide transformation. I'll provide the energy support or like the actual tangible support in doing it. And that's how I've structured my quizzes. That's why I believe I have the conversion rates I have. That's why I believe even when I've been doing trainings like webinars like this without the quizzes, I've had very high conversion rates is because of that like energetic understanding of what I share with my clients without like the sticky attachment and what's available for them should they want to go forward, right? Or not, either way, totally fine. So that is where I've gotten excited about quizzes. Are you guys kind of feeling the vibe here? Any questions about the backstory? Are we ready to just like dive in to the how now? Yeah, we're ready. Okay, I love it. Okay, I'm looking at my notes that I was going to print, but this was my tech challenge. Okay. Oh, I did write down my conversion rates for you. So the Healing Currency quiz, I converted 15% of the people who took the quiz bought the course in the first 9 days. So it happened very quickly. And then with the assessment, 45 people bought it. Oh, there's a typo there. And 17 signed up. So 17 divided by 45, that's a 38% conversion rate. Okay, so the first question is, yes, Carly has a quiz too. You guys can scope out it on her website. She has a quiz to figure out what's your dosha type, right? Carly's an Ayurvedic practitioner. So you could figure out what's your dosha type, which is sort of like a body type assessment of your energy and your personality, according to Ayurvedic science. So it's been incredibly powerful for her as well. Okay, so first of all, like what is a quiz funnel? What is a quiz funnel? A quiz funnel is people fill out a quiz, okay? It gives them a result or an outcome. From that, they are put into a segment of your email list, okay? And they will get a series of content from you about the outcome that they specifically told you was their problem, okay? They will get some free training. They will get some validation around feeling seen and heard and understood, right? They will get some support. And then they will receive an invitation to your paid service, right? And you will be able to articulate your paid service in such a way that it actually deals with the issues they told you they want help with. This is the thing, like this is where the consent-based marketing is so powerful, is you're not making it up. They told you. They're like, this is my problem. According to my quiz outcome, this is me, right? This is my money relationship, or this is my dosha type, or this is the reasons why I'm struggling to find love, or this is the reasons why I'm experiencing a lack of confidence, or this is a reason why my energy is stagnant, whatever. That's what the quiz tells you. So now I can speak only to that, because how many of you are like, when someone's like, oh, like, what can you help people with? And you're like, oh, I can help people with all kinds of things, right? How many people feel that? I do it too. I do it too. I'm like, I can use numerology to help you understand your kids, to help you grow your business, to help you improve your money relationship, to help you improve your self esteem. I'm like, I can do all of it. And that literally means that like I could be talking about numerology and parenting, and that's going to put a wall up to anybody who has no children or doesn't care to improve their parenting with their children, right? Like, why? I might as well find out what they're actually looking for and then speak directly to the thing that I can actually help them with. Are you guys feeling this? Super powerful. A lot of, the concept of a segment or a funnel gets a bad rap, because people are like, oh, it's like bro marketing. It's too structured. It's not intuitive and inspired. And this is like such a myth that I want to bust. First of all, your intuition, your inspiration, and your creativity require a foundation to sit on. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel taken care of, if your business isn't supporting you, your intuition will get cut off. Your inspiration and your creativity will get cut off. I've been there. I've felt that. When I'm struggling in business or I'm not experiencing the level of financial support I need to feel safe, I'm like, hello, ideas, where are you? Like, hello, next step, where are you? It's hard to think creatively and be inspired when you're in survival mode. So having certain structures and foundations in place actually lets your intuition, your creativity flourish. Okay. The other piece about this is it requires you to have like an email system set up. This is another thing that a lot of people can have resistance around, and I get it. How many people have felt like they hate email? I'll say it, me too, even though I'm like shouting from the rooftops, everyone needs an email system. I sometimes feel like I hate it too. Okay. But let me ask you this question. Is there an email you receive from someone where you're like, this email is my lifeline? Like, when I get it, I look forward to it. I will read the whole thing word for word. And it's like oxygen to me. Have you ever felt that when you've read a content creator's email? Anybody feeling that? I have certain emails where I've been on their email list for years because I just love the energy I get and get to experience when I read their messages. It makes me think about things differently. It makes me feel certain things, whatever it is, right? You are that for your people. Your energy is the medicine that they need and crave and want. And this is so important for us to realize. I feel like most people, when they think, oh, I don't want to email too often, I don't want to this, it's because you don't recognize your message isn't just like white noise to your people. Your message is like oxygen to them. It's nourishment to their soul. They need it. And if they don't need it, they can unsubscribe. They can remove their consent. It's not up to you to manage their boundaries, right? They consented. You get to share. When they want to change that, they are powerful enough to make that decision. And it's on us to decide that they're powerful enough to make that decision, right? Oh my gosh, let's not even get into the nightmare of the changes that happened in February, Trish. I know I had so many stupid problems with it. Even though I agree with Carly, I spent so much time on the help desk with GoDaddy and Kajabi trying to sort out that. But we are one of the good ones, and we need to remember that. We are one of the good ones. We're here to make a difference. We're here to support our clients. We're not spamming them and sending them junk, right? And they'll unsubscribe if they're done with it. And that's fair enough, right? It requires that like art of non-attachment in that space of like, I'm here to serve, make a difference, and support you. And when you've had your fill, then that's fair enough. You'll leave. All good. Okay. The reason I'm passionate about it is email lists versus social media. Okay. If you have your community on social media, does anyone have a guess? I asked ChatGPT this, so that's what I'm basing my stats on. Um, does anyone have a guess what your social media following will convert at in terms of a customer who buys? Anyone have a guess what the numbers are? 1 to 3%. So I've got like around 2,000 people on my social media following. That means like 20 of them might become paying customers. Like that's sad. That's pretty disheartening because you cannot I could not run a business off of 20 customers. Some people might be able to depending on your business model, but my business model that would not fly, right? Whereas email, it's 10 to 25%. Okay? So if your email list is 2,000 people, all of a sudden that becomes 200 potential clients or buying clients, right? Versus 20. Like, yes, please. I would prefer that. And so people are like, well, do I just say the same thing over and over again in different places? Yes. Why would you not? Okay. But this is the other frustration that people have. Tell me if you've been there with social media marketing versus and email marketing, both, where you're like, oh my God, I got the best post idea. I got the best idea. It's so good. People are going to love it. And you put it out there, and like maybe people are excited about it for like 2 or 3 days, or maybe not. And then it's just gone into the void of content creation. It's like just gone forever. You're like, that was such a good idea. Can I just like repost it every week? I mean, you could repost it every week. But this is where the quiz funnels come in. Because when you get those pieces of content that are gold, you put them in the sequence that a client receives after they fill out the quiz, right? So every new person who's new into your world gets to have that dose of medicine. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So you can literally go back. I know if you go on Facebook, you can hit a button. Like if you look at your profile on Facebook, you can hit a button called Grid View. And when you're looking at your post from Grid View, you can see how your posts have performed. You can pick the best content you've done over the last 2 years, pick the best 5 things you've done over the last 2 years, turn it into like some emails, put them in an order that logically makes sense. And the client will fill out your quiz, get one of these emails every day or two for a week. Now that stuff's no longer in the content void. It's actually actively serving and nurturing your client base with the best of your medicine. Like it's such valuable gold, right? Okay. Anyone have any questions about this? Did I lose anyone in this like explanation of social versus email and then like the sequence versus the broadcast? And that might be an area that some people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. So a broadcast is like, I'm just going to send an email to everybody today on September 18th. Whereas a sequence is like everyone who comes in, whichever day they come in, will get a scheduled sequence of messages that I have designed in a particular order for a particular reason. Any questions about that? What if I don't have any content? The creation process for a funnel seems like it would take a lot of time. It can, right? It can. To be honest though, when I see my clients and I realize that things are taking a lot of time for them, usually there's energetics at play as to why they're not able to put the message out there, right? Because most of the time, if I sit down and ask them a series of questions in a one-on-one call, they can tell me all the information. So why can I not just take that information, put it in an email, and schedule it? That's usually some type of energetic block around, do I trust myself to hold space for clients? Am I willing to be compensated for my gifts? Do I trust myself to make an offer and then sell people things and then deliver on my promises? There's some kind of like energetics at play. Oftentimes too, I find that we have a hard time seeing our own stuff, like our own gifts and magic objectively. And so we don't know, like, well, where do I even start? Well, what are even the challenges? Like, I actually just had a consulting call with someone this morning who's got a massive business, much more successful than mine. If you look at the metrics of how much money she's made and how many clients she served. But yet when I was like, oh, well, if you looked at your business like this and you created a quiz funnel like that, or, you could ask your clients these questions. She was like, oh, I never thought of that before. It's like, we can't see our own stuff the way an outsider can see it, because there's a different level of like entanglement and attachment, right? So recognizing it can take a lot of time. But for example, my healing currency quiz, I put the quiz together, I put the email funnel together, and I created the course in like 2 to 3 weeks. It didn't take me that long. The email funnel and the quiz itself took me like 3 or 4 days. So if you really know your stuff, like it took time. Like I had to sit down at a coffee shop and write it out. Like I'm not saying it doesn't take any time, but like the fact that in 2 or 3 days I was able to serve 160 people, like to me that made my like heart of making a difference feel really good. Whether they bought the program that I was offering or not, I was like, I know at least I've made a difference to these people. Maybe they'll think differently about money, maybe they'll think differently about their relationship with their money, and that's only good, right? Okay, so now that we know what a quiz funnel is, does anyone have any more questions about what the quiz funnel is? I feel like we've kind of dialed that in. What does the quiz funnel do? If you are the kind of person who struggles to explain like what you do or who you help or how you help them or the difference you can make, or you can come up with like 10 different examples, this is where the quiz funnel is really powerful, because they get to tell you what their problem is first before you just like word vomit all the options you can use to help them, right? They will tell you. So you don't need to go down the path of telling them things about your work that's irrelevant to them, right? So yes, it is a big thing about them understanding you through the way they interact with the quiz and with your business. It also creates an opportunity where people kind of like raise their hand and opt in energetically, right? They're leaning in, they're giving consent to engage with your business. And from my framework, we'll talk about this more on Friday, when someone's engaging in your free content, they're a client, right? Even if they haven't exchanged money with you, I still consider them a client, and I'll explain why and what to do about that and how we use that to support us on Friday's call, because that's related to the business model. It helps you build your community. Okay. Your community is your leads list. Your community is the pool of potential buyers. Okay. You do not have a business if you don't have a pool of potential buyers or a leads list. Like you need to have people to sell your stuff to, right? That is required. Even if you don't really know what you're going to sell yet, but you want a business, you can start to build your community or your leads pool, right? Like you can start to build that now. This is if you know how you want to help people, or like if you know like the theme you want to help people on, you just haven't like crafted an offer yet, you can build this now, right? The cool thing about using a quiz to build it is your people will tell you what your niche is, right? Because now you have data. Data is so valuable. So let's say you get 200 people, let's say you get 20 people to fill out a quiz where you ask them all kinds of questions. Now you have this bank of data, and you could be like, wow, none of my people have a problem with speaking and knowing and like expression, but all of them have a problem with self-doubt and lack of confidence. Okay, good to know. Now, when I'm creating content, when I'm creating products and services and offers, I'm not going to worry so much about like expression. I'm more going to be worried about how do I help them find that sense of confidence and trust in themselves, right? It can make a difference too. Like depending on your niche. One of the quizzes I'm creating for a client right now, it's to figure out what's your leadership gap. And we can hypothesize all day long about what we think her client's leadership gap is, right? And we've broken it down to three kind of core areas. We have hypothesis about it. We've analyzed some past clients. We're like, I think it's this, I think it's that. But like once she has had 100 people take the quiz, then we'll know. We'll know what their biggest leadership gap is. And that can help her narrow down her niche. So whenever people are like, well, what's your niche? What's the problem you solve? And you're kind of in that place of like, I could go in lots of directions with it. Well, ask your people what they want from you and go in that direction, right? So it can really help you sort of narrow that in. Okay. Educates people for free. Segments your list, means you can speak to them about the issues that they told you they've had. One of my favorite things about this is my favorite thing about numerology and energy work in general, is leaving people feel seen, heard, and understood, right? That is how people build trust. They want to feel like you get them. If they don't feel like you get them, they will not buy from you, right? They will not. If they don't think you understand their challenges. Like I joke all the time because I always say things like, I won't hire a business coach who doesn't have like young children at home, because they could never understand the unique challenges I face. They're not relatable. But I actually did hire a business coach very recently who doesn't have any children, let alone young children at home. Why? Because I felt like they really understood me and understood my challenges, right? So that sense of feeling seen, heard, and understood, and relatable, like that's a person that could walk with me when they fill out the quiz, and you show them like, yeah, this is your leadership gap, or yeah, this is your relationship with money, or this is your block to love, or whatever your quiz is going to be on. They're like, oh my God, that's so me. It's so me. That's the funnest thing too when you do quizzes like that. When your clients message you back, oh my God, I got this result and it's so me. And you're like, yes, I knew it. Like it makes so much sense. Right? Okay, building trust. Building trust through small wins. Okay. So when people I talked about this a little bit earlier, how the market shifted a lot and it feels like some of the marketing that we would have used last year isn't necessarily converting as well this year. That's because your people need to build trust through small wins. That's the meaning I've ascribed to it. I, there's probably lots of meanings. You could describe different meanings to it, but to me, what feels very true is that people need to build trust through small wins. They need to see that something is actually going to work for them before they're like jumping in with both feet. So it's like, okay, well, let me set this up to give you some small wins. So when my healing currency quiz, when you get your outcome, I give you a couple of action steps for you to try. And when you try them and you notice like, oh, this actually is going to work for me, now you have a small win. You can see how this is going to benefit you. The advice, it works, it's consistent with your belief systems. So then it's less of a risk for you to be like, okay, let me hire her to help me, right? It's all about like kind of reducing that sense of risk for our clients. I think my favorite is not letting your favorite pieces of content die in the content void. Like you put it out there and it's gone forever. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thoughts, questions? What do you guys feel about the how and the sort of what that a quiz will do? What is the piece I've shared so far where you're like, ooh, that feels like a piece I needed to hear, or that's like validates some thoughts or questions I've been having? Any ahas kicking in?
Megan, when you write up this quiz, is there any particular questions that you recommend, especially around things like finances?
Yeah. So I'm going to go into what types of quizzes to ask, like what types of quizzes we can create next. So that's a great segue question. Absolutely. And it really depends on your niche. So I will explain what types of quizzes you can use and for what niches they make sense. Consent marketing is huge. Yeah, huge. Being able to help people feel seen, heard, and understood. Absolutely. Validates for me that it helps with your niche. Yeah, I think it's a really useful thing to use when you're kind of like experimenting of like where, like I could do this, I could do that, where do I want to go? Especially if you're like me and you want to talk about all kinds of things depending on your mood. Okay, so what types of quiz? There's a few different types you can do. I'm going to focus mostly on the ones that are easy to create automated. Okay. I do not want you to do a quiz that requires your manual effort to a low priced offer. That's crazy. Okay. And it would make you crazy. So, for example, one type of quiz is an assessment. And I shared that I've done these assessments. I just did a bunch recently. Some of you got one from me where I'm like, I got you to fill out a form and then I sent you a voice note. Those are majorly labor intensive. It took me days to send all of those voice notes out. Days. And it's like energetically intensive too. Like I have to sit with the person's energy. I look at the thing, I sit with it, I look at their website, whatever, right? Like it takes time, energy, and effort. And, like that only makes sense to do something like that if you are positioning something that's a higher ticket investment, right? So I do those business assessments because my goal will be if you want support, you're either going to join me in the Abundant Business Mentorship, which is a business coaching program that you'll work with me for 6 months, or you would hire me for private business coaching. Again, more of a higher ticket investment. I would never do something like that for a product that costs like, $500 or less. It wouldn't make sense. It would be way too much work. Now, that being said, if you're like starting from ground zero and you don't have a lot of clients to work with, you could definitely do a few of those for a limited time to really understand your client base a little bit more and then use those to create a product. And I did that last year. When I got a bunch of those assessments back last year, pretty much everyone was telling me that they didn't have an opt-in. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. You guys all need an opt-in. So I created a training on how to create an opt-in because they told me that's what they needed by all of them telling me they didn't have an opt-in. Do you know what I mean? So when you do an assessment like that, like it's great because you're providing really good value to your client, but it's also market research for you. And then you can say, this is what I can do, but it's labor intensive. So it doesn't make a great sort of funnel unless it's, like I said, either a high ticket item or you're really starting from ground zero and you're doing some research and you want to say something like the first 20 people or, what, put some kind of limiter on it. Okay. So that's one. The automated ones. Let's go into the automated ones. Okay. There's two styles that I like. The first style, which I don't know, it's hard to say which is my favorite, but it's really easy. This one is blocks. Okay. This is like understanding the blocks. Okay. So every single one of us, if we have an effective business, we solve a problem. Okay. So jot down on your page, what is the problem that you solve? Let's not overcomplicate it. Let's keep it super easy. Okay. The problem I solve is helping people get more clients, right? The problem I solve is making people feel beautiful on their website. The problem I solve is when people have a lot of stress and anxiety in their body, I help them create ease. When people have an unhealthy relationship with food, I help them with proper nourishment of their body. When people are struggling with the family dynamics and their relationship with their children, I help them heal their family dynamics, right? I'm just picking out a few people here when I sort of know what you do, right? So keep it super blunt. And if you struggle with the I help you statements, hopefully you saw my chat GPT prompt. Did you guys all get that? If you don't know how to answer this question, my chat GPT guide will help you. It's been my favorite thing to do, right? So I created like a guide on how to get chat GPT to help you answer that question. So if you don't have it and you want it, DM me afterwards and I'll make sure you get the link to sign up for that. But yeah, you want to know what's the problem that you solve. Okay. Now, all of your clients would have that problem solved if it wasn't for their challenges, their blocks, and their struggles. Am I right? So let's figure out what are the challenges and the blocks and the struggles to them getting the outcome they would get if they hired you. And this is going to be like word vomit, and that's perfect, right? So let's just say, let's use mine, right? Like I had not created a quiz for this particular awful, that talk about meta, a quiz for creating a quiz. But like, let's just like think about like what would be the blocks of helping people get more clients. They don't know where to start. They're uncomfortable with technology. They doubt their products and services. Their business model's not effective. They don't know how to create content. They don't know how to attract new clients. They're worried that they're not good enough. They're worried that their product might not be effective. Like I'm going to just like blah out all of the reasons why my clients don't have their problem solved. Okay? Are you guys with me on this? Can you guys all, if you struggle to do that, the other way you can think about it is write down the names of 3 to 5 clients you've worked with recently. Could be a paid client, could be a trade client, could even be a client avatar. It doesn't have to be like a real 3D client. It can be a client you've made up. And I want you to list off all of the problems and the struggles they have as to why they needed to work with you. And it can be even stuff that doesn't seem directly related. Like it could be like they're too busy, they're not sleeping well, they're whatever, right? Once you have that big list of challenges, that list of challenges, blocks, struggles, whatever it is, fits into categories. Okay. Bear with me because a lot of people will look at theirs and they'll be like, well, every client's unique. It's actually not that true. Most of our clients are not all that unique. There might be like 3 to 5 types of clients we work with, but they're really like everyone thinks their problems are completely unique and they're not. They can always be modeled. Okay. There's always a model or a framework. So if you take all of their challenges and you were to try to lump them into like 3 core buckets of challenges, okay, the quiz would be like, I just did this with a client. What are your barriers to love? Her niche is that she helps women over 40 who've experienced divorce find love again. Right? So all of them don't have love and want love. They all probably feel like they're unique and their challenges are different. And they're the only ones that dealt with X, Y, and Z. But when we analyzed it, it was like, nope, they all fit into 3 buckets for the most part, right? Roughly. It's not like 100%, 100%, but roughly they fit into 3 buckets. So her client can do the quiz and get a result. And that's your block of love. That's the reason why you don't have the love that you deserve. And she's beta testing it right now. And she's like, everybody I've sent it to has been like, oh my God, that's me to a T. Right? It's like the same. Like we read our like zodiac or we read our numerology or we read our human design and we're like, oh my God, it's so me. Right? Of course, we all have slight differences, but there are categories that make us similar. Okay. So if you can figure out how to take your challenges that your client's facing and block them into 3 categories, you can make a quiz to figure out which one they fall into. And then you don't have to talk to them about the other issues. You only talk to them about the issues related to that category. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about this? The really cool thing, yeah, go for it, Kristen.
So does that mean you need to create a sequence for each challenge?
Yeah. So that's why when I do quizzes, I'm like, pick three buckets.
Yeah.
Don't go more because you don't want to create like 5 email funnels. Like that's just so much work. But pick 3. Like, so I was talking with somebody that was a content creator, teaching people how to create content. And it was like, how do you monetize your content? And it was like affiliate marketing, direct sales. I can't remember, right? And it's like, sure, there's more than three ways to monetize your content, but there's three core ways, right? So it's like, let's put our people into one of those buckets and speak to one of those core strategies, right? So like even for you, you might think like, well, what are the blocks to people? There's a few ways you could do it. It's like, what are the blocks to people booking a branded photo shoot or booking photo shoots? Like you could look at it as like, what are the blocks? Why don't they? Right? You could also look at it as to like how they might sabotage the effectiveness of their photo shoot, right? Like if, because with every, whenever you look at a challenge a client's facing, it's always the inverse to the solution they want. So you can look at this in two ways. So the leadership one, let's look at that for a second. It's like my client's telling me like there's these three categories of skills you need to be a good leader. You're either, you have one of these, like you need a combination of these three skills to be strong. So we can look at it as like, well, what's your best skill? What's the gap that you're missing, which is what we decided to do. But every challenge is an inverse of the solution they want, right? So for some of us, it might be easier to look at the solutions they want, right? So like for me, the solution they wanted was to heal their relationship with money, right? And so my quiz, I did it a little differently. I'm going to share that next. But you can think to like when I'm speaking to my client, what's going to help them figure out the challenge to solution, the problem to solution. It's always like an inverse dynamic. So if the problem is they don't have enough time, they're not confident, their vision's not clear, they're struggling with self-esteem, they're too busy booking clients, they don't have time to think about the big vision of their business, the reverse of that is the solution that they want. They want to feel beautiful, they want to feel safe, they want to feel like they trust their vision, they want to feel like there's someone to look up to, like whatever, right? And so this is where you kind of want to brainstorm it out. And this is where you can also get ChatGPT to help you. The more you train your AI to help you, the easier it is with some of these questions. You can start to ask it like Kristen, for you, I would even ask it like, why do people not get photo shoots every season? Right? What are the reasons why? Right? Or maybe you do energy work and you feel like people don't understand it. It's like, why don't people understand energy work? Help me flesh this out. You can ask your AI to brainstorm with you. I use ChatGPT. I have not tried any of the other ones, so I can't speak to it. But I feel like whichever one you use, if you stay consistent with it, it remembers your conversations. So I've been working, it's taken me a few months to get my chat and me to be like a team, which is why I say like you have to train your AI. It's like becoming your unpaid intern. That's what my guide is called. It's a free guide that I created. Train chat to be your unpaid intern because it's like it knows me now, knows my language, knows the questions I care about, it knows what my clients care about, it knows the outcomes I want. And so now when I say to it things like, chat, remember when I was developing some content around quizzes, like why do people struggle with that? And it's like it can go into its memory bank and look at what we've been talking about for the last couple of months. So the more conversational you can be with your AI, the more helpful it is. Like I said, I've only used ChatGPT, but I'm sure I have a friend who uses Perplexity and loves it. I'm sure there's other good ones. But I feel the value in AI is the relationship you create with it because that's where your AI builds a memory of you, right? And a memory of your body of work, memory of your clients, that kind of thing. Okay, so problem, solution, whichever one, three buckets, right? So it's either like you're going to speak to the thing they desire, right? And tell them like, what is your whatever, or you're going to speak to the reason why they don't have it. And then you're going to give them a series of emails to help them understand that issue more, with the call to action being a paid product with you. Okay. That's type one of the quiz. Type two of the quiz is more of like understanding personality or archetype. And that's what I did with the healing currency quiz. It was like, what's your healing currency archetype? What type of money relationship do you have? That's what the quiz basically tells you. You have this money relationship where you're a prosperous sage. You have this money relationship where you are a magnetic wanderer, or you have this money relationship where you're a resource guardian. And when you're looking at archetypal energies, there's pros and cons to each. Okay. So, like, Kristen, because you asked, I'm going to continue to riff on photography as an idea, but you could be like, there's like roughly three styles of photo shoots. One might be like polished, high end, classy, chic. One might be like boho, earthy, outdoorsy, whatever. One might be feminine goddess archetype, playfulness, like whatever. And it's like figure out what photography style you need for your next photo shoot. And then you'd ask them a series of questions of being like, whatever, we come up with the questions. And then it would tell them your next photo shoot needs to be the like high end, classy, chic photo shoot. Here's some outfit ideas. Here's a Pinterest board of poses. Here's some mindset work that you'll need to do prior to the photo shoot. And you could like create a little package for them. I did one like that a long time ago where it was like for branding, and it gave me like, I answered a bunch of questions and then it gave me like color suggestions and font suggestions, and it was a person who was a graphic designer, right? And so it's like I could take those color and font suggestions and just run with them, or I could be like, oh my god, I love this so much, like can you just do it for me, and booked the person to do it for me, right? So there's lots of different ways you can do it. Even like Kristen, when I think of your work, you might say something like, here's why it's important to book professional images in this frequency. And here's what you can do to stretch them DIY style in between. Here's some selfie tips. Here's some whatever, right? And it's like, oh my God, she gets it. Like, I want the professional shots, but I need to make them, I need some mileage. So how do I make that happen? And so you really want to think of like, when you're thinking in terms of like archetypes or personalities, you need to think of like, what's the thing they want that I can help them realize they can have it because it's already a part of who they are on some level or another. Does that make sense? So, which one do you choose? I feel like everybody could easily do either one. I do feel like the archetype one sometimes is a bit trickier, but I do feel like it works really well with kind of more vulnerable stuff, right? Because like when you're doing a quiz to help understand people's like blocks or challenges, you do want to be aware of like, am I really kind of emphasizing on stuff that's really difficult? Like if I did a quiz on like what's your money trauma, I feel like that would be very uncomfortable. Like I don't, that is not a place I would want to go, right? But like what's your money relationship like? That's not gonna like, upheal trauma, but yet it's going to help people be like, oh right, my money relationship is, this way. And that's the good thing about it. And that's the difficult thing about it. And if I want to do something about it, here's a next step for me, right? So you can do it like that. Even when I'm thinking of Judy, for example, you might have like three different archetypes depending on the stage of life you're in. So it's like if you're a young mom with kids at home, if you're retired and don't have time constraints as much, if you right, like you can sort of start to think about like, how do I classify my people into like, it's like this is like their personality or their user type, or the way it's going to make sense to them. That makes sense. Does anyone have some ideas around what are the I reached out to a few different people about this actually, because I have a few people who do a lot of energy work and light language and cosmic Reiki and things like that. And I was like, it would be really fun to be like, what is your starseed guide that is trying to support you right now, right? You could ask questions around that. Or one of the ones that somebody had sent me an assessment on, they want to do more like aromatherapy products. So it's like, well, answer these questions and I'll give you an aromatherapy protocol. And obviously, you're giving like three protocols, but like you can make it a general protocol. It doesn't have to be like super specific, right? Like you're thinking more general. Maybe you'll do one around sleep. Maybe you'll do one around stress. Maybe you'll do one around creativity, right? And it's like, well, somebody's going to fall somewhere in there. I think we all have all those, right? Yeah. Any questions about the blocks style or the archetype style?
Megan, I was just going to ask a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I just had a massive aha moment. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, how have I not seen this? So, I'm kind of known more for working with kids and moms, but I've had a lot more males coming my way who don't have children. Addiction, working on the childhood trauma in that. But I'm like, oh my gosh, but everybody, their breakdown, breakthrough moment is always about they've lost their purpose or direction. I tend to get so stuck in the heal the trauma, which obviously is important. That's the block of them reaching their purpose and direction. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a total theme. And whether it's younger mums, well, say younger mums, mums of younger kids, they're almost looking for purpose direction in directing their own kids and trying to be that, best mom. And then with the parents of older kids, it's helping the kids find their purpose and direction. And then you've got the mums who are totally lost. Like my kids have left home. Who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. But it all comes down to purpose and directions. I'm like, how would you like? I feel like I've got that many ideas for quizzes. It's like working backwards, right?
Exactly. And this is where you'll want to kind of flesh it out. There's a few things I would look at of like what are the problems and symptoms associated with the lack of purpose and direction and what are the solutions the person wants. But I would also really like to think about what is the entry level offer that I want to support them with.
Mm,
Because you want the quiz to make sense with that, right? And so for
right.
me, understanding your money relationship, it made sense to go like, well, now that you know your money relationship, let's work on strengthening that and healing the challenges, right? And so you really want to think of like, where am I guiding them so that this is
Yeah,
all like a journey that we're walking on to go somewhere.
right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's because, yeah, no, that makes sense. Because usually I offer like a free connection call, and from that, it leads into nearly always a package. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, okay, makes sense. It makes
Good.
sense.
So on Friday's call, on Friday's call, we're going to talk more about the business model part of this because this is what's next, right? Like you can do 100 quizzes, but like the point of this quiz is it's a doorway into your world, right? So then it's like, well, stage one is my community building and leads building. That's part of the quiz. Stage two is an accessible or affordable product or service. We're talking more about this on Friday, but like it might be a one-on-one consult. It might be a discovery call. It could also be a digital download. Like there's lots of things we can talk about that. And then step three is going to be a leveraged or high end offer, which could be like a one-on-one package or something like that. So if I know that, then when they come through the quiz, I'm positioning a one-on-one call with me. So in my one-on-one call, what do I feel like I can provide? If I feel like I can provide them an understanding of their purpose or their direction, then it might be like, what are the impacts of not having a purpose or a direction? Might be like where the quiz is taking them. Like you'll need to flesh that out for sure.
Thank you. This is awesome. So good.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Yes. I'm not sure I have my business. I'm not sure I have set up my business in a way to get people to purchase certain offers anymore. Yeah. So this is where let's talk about the business model more on Friday, Maggie, because like one of the clients I'm working with right now, it was similar in that all of the offers she has are all high touch, very expensive, one-on-one. And so she's full a lot. She can't take on a lot more people, so she's not necessarily looking to bring in more clients, but yet she wants that pipeline, that database of like, okay, here's people who will be filling that pipeline. So that's how we're setting up her quiz to be, is like, we will have a super low offer for her. It's not about making the money and the low offer. It's more about kind of like qualifying her people. And the cool thing that we've done in her low priced offer is we're including a self-assessment. So her people will fill out an assessment, and then she'll say to them, bring your assessment to a consultation call with me. And then that becomes a way of like pre-qualifying people to find out if they're a good fit to work with her in like the higher end capacity. And she's like, 'cause she does a lot of speaking, right? So she's on podcasts and she's doing public speaking. It's like, well, all these people, they come in and out so quick. Whereas if she brings them in through a quiz, giving them value, now they get to stay with her until either she has space to do a VIP with them, or they're like, ooh, now I need that thing because I've seen enough of your content that we've built that relationship. So this is where the business model kind of, you need to work backwards and forwards at the same time. Any other questions for me? Okay, I want to ask you a couple of pieces I know we're over time, so I appreciate you guys being here. Number one, the question I want to ask you is, will you guys be coming on Friday where we'll be talking more about how to put the business model with the quiz so that it makes sense, right? This is why we can get good conversions, is if the strategy makes sense. You will not get good conversions on just some random quiz if it's not effectively positioning your next offer, right? Yay. Okay, love it. I'm glad you guys are going to be here on Friday. The second question I want to ask you is, what feels more intriguing or enticing to you, doing a quiz around blocks, challenges, and sabotages, or doing a quiz around like archetypal energy or like personality? I don't really know how else to kind of describe the other style of quiz, but you can see how they're different styles, right? One is like blocks, one is like archetypes. Yeah, archetypes, positive outcomes, absolutely. Okay, so here's my little, do you guys want a little homework assignment around this? Yeah, maybe play with it, see what you think. I would type into ChatGPT some of the thoughts you're having around this and just be like, hey, chat, here's what I do. Here's what some of the challenges are that my people have. Here's how I help them. I want to make a quiz to help them better understand the outcomes available to them. Or I want to make a quiz to help them to understand 3 ways that this might impact them, whatever, right? And just see if you can have a bit of a conversation with your AI about it, just to see if it will help you flesh it out. Because this is what I love using it for, is like the brainstorming tool, right? Yeah, blocks. Yeah, totally. And like in Judy's example too, we could use like what stage of life you're in. We could also use like how your energy might be affecting your life, which is like kind of like a blocks thing. And you want it to be something that's like fits with your branding, is in integrity to you, and makes sense with what's going on with your clients, top of mind. Like you want it to be symptom based, because this is like their entry point, right? So you want it to be like, this is like the top of mind challenge they're having, or this is the thing they're like, oh, if I just could figure out why I'm not a good leader, or how come I can't, have any success in dating, or why, like whatever those questions are that your people are asking, like that's where you kind of want to play in the quiz world with. Yeah, we can talk more about that for sure. There's lots of different softwares. If you actually Google quiz software, lots will come up, but I'll share the one that I've used, and we'll talk more about that. So there's training Friday, and then there's also a training on Monday. I can't remember where that one lands, but we'll talk about that. Cool. All right. So thank you for being here. Wrapping up this call, I'd love to just hear if anyone wants to unmute or pop it in the chat. What is your number one takeaway? What's the aha, the insight that hit, the reason you needed to be here today? What landed for you?
I think for me, Megan, it is the idea that, or just that aha was that I'm asking too general of questions. People do not really know the answer. Like, what's your top health goal? they're like, I don't really know. I have so many things I'm working on. So for me, that was interesting, was maybe they don't actually know the answer.
I love that. That's such a great insight too. It's like if your people have to like pause and sit with it for a few minutes and you can tell the wheels are turning, like maybe a quiz would give them the prompts because you probably know like, oh, most people struggle with either sleep, lifestyle, nutrition. Those are the three main areas. Boom. Okay. I'll ask the questions that help them come there because our people don't know this. Like they don't know, right? More
Mhm.
specific questions. Yeah. Love it.
I would actually like to say that the thing I had like I actually wrote something in the chat and then started to get this immediate download. And what you said, which was super helpful, I have, I've taken so many courses and I feel like the thing that gets me overwhelmed is how do I implement all this information? And sometimes I forget I'm putting too much power into their hands of what they want versus what am I really desiring to do. Like I think like I want to fit into their boxes instead of me saying, no, this is my calling. And so that was really, really helpful. I really appreciate that.
I love that. That is so good because that is such a sign of like maturing in your niche of like, I'm not just going to do, let's use Reiki to help everybody, or I'm not just going to use EFT to help everybody. My specific brand of Reiki or EFT or whatever is for this. This is what I love. This is what gets me juiced up. And then it's like, that is where people are like, oh, so and so is the go to in this field. And that's where we want to get, right? The cool thing to me, what I vision around the quizzes too, is like when you become the go to around this, other practitioners will send their clients to your quiz. I've seen this happening in the feminine empowerment circle, specifically around sexuality. There is this quiz that's going around. It's been going around for years that helps people understand their sexual energy. And dozens of coaches, whatever you want to call them, healers, point people to the same quiz and say, tell me what your results are. Sure, it's their client, but now that client is also in the funnel of the quiz creator who is like the OG on that content, right? So it's like strategically positioning yourself as kind of this like OG in this field where other practitioners might be directing people to your quiz because it's so valuable in getting clarity for their clients. Like that's so cool. Consent marketing. Yes. Love me some consent marketing. Understanding how to speak to clients in words that make sense to them. Yeah, I feel like I say, yes, I can help you, but I can't seem to get them in the door. This is the door where you're like, yes, I can help you. Fill out this quiz and DM me your results, right? I mean, you'll get the notification, you'll know what the result is, but then it's opened the door to this conversation of like, hey, what did you get? Oh, wow. Like, tell me what stood out to you. Oh, wow. Like, how does that play out in your life? And then it creates kind of like a quote unquote discovery call foundation that you can play out in the DMs, which is way more accessible than like who wants to book a 20-minute Zoom call these days? Like that's a hard ask. Whereas a DM conversation with those questions is a pretty easy ask.
I think for me, the opting in consent based, a lot of people like my healing advice, but when I tell them how I got to it, it's so super niche and so esoteric. They're like, wait, hold on. So I think someone interacting with the quiz and getting that information before I start to go in deeper is also helpful for filtering out those people who don't want to go there as well.
Absolutely. It's so helpful for that. And it's like, this might seem like a funny comparison, but I think of it as like the way we get our children to do things is we don't tell them, we ask them, right?
Mhm.
Like, and you think about like the yes questions to lead to a certain thing. But if your client's a no to the yes question, good. Don't waste your time finishing the quiz. Don't waste your time signing up for anything because it won't get you the result you want. Good that we both know that, right? Whereas it's
Right.
like the questions leading in, it's like every time a person is like willing to answer, the way I feel it is it's like a part of their energetic body opens to make them available for the transformation that you're able to provide. And if they're not willing to answer or it doesn't make sense to you, they will X out of the window. They will incomplete the quiz. And that's them saying, no, I'm not available. And perfect. Like, glad that we've got that clear.
Yeah.
Love it. Thanks for sharing. Amazing. Okay. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate this so much. Your homework assignment, brainstorm your ideas a little bit, either with a friend or use ChatGPT if you want to play with it like I've been doing. And the more kind of foundation you can get with this, it will make more sense on Friday when we start talking about stage 1, 2, and 3 of your business model. Because you kind of want to have, I mean, you can do it either way, but if you've got something to go with, it will make it so that you can ask me really good questions on Friday and it will all hopefully start to kind of come together. All right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. See you Friday.